They think about people living in caves. They think about Osama bin Laden, people who have no weapons, no any real means, that are out there trying to use, people, suicide bombers and things like that to destroy us. And they say, well, how can we lose to them? Who are these people? I'm afraid of a guy who may not even be alive, who may be the best living in a cave. How can we lose to them? And so when we say the war on terror, we send a very clear message. Just like what the president said for the first year and a half after the events of 9/11, he referred to our enemies as cowards. Continued to do that for a year and a half until someone finally said, Mr. President, how are you going to get people to take this enemy seriously if you tell them they're cowards? Words matter. Words matter. So the president doesn't call them cowards anymore. You know what? Because they're not. These people are not cowards. These people are very brave, misguided, sick, but certainly a willingness to die for what they believe in, and that, in my book, is not cowardice. And they do it every single day. And they believe you won't. They believe you're soft. They believe that you don't have to fight. One of the most popular films being replayed in the Arab world are the two Fox News reporters submitting to Islam. They see that as the essence of America. So attached to the essence of Europe, so attached to our stuff, so connected to this world because we have so much that they aren't willing to sacrifice anything. They're not willing to sacrifice their life for something beyond this world. That's why they see us as evil. That's why they see us as corrupt. That's why they're not afraid of us. That's why they think they're going to win this war. Because they see us as a bunch of weak materialists. And they don't want that corrupting them. This is the enemy we fight. An enemy that believes that the only real world is the next one. The enemy that believes that this world is drudgery and suffering and folly, and that dying in pursuit of the next world is the only sure way to eternal life. That's what they believe. And they are spreading that belief all throughout the Middle East. And it has gained and is gaining continual popularity. And so we here in America, because we refuse to call them what they are, don't define for the American people the threat that is before us. And in particular, this threat that I talk about, and I've encouraged the administration to talk about, and that is Iran. Iran is where the action is today. Iran is where we have moved as far as the principal threat that faces America. The first threat was Al-Qaeda, Sunni radicals. We went to Afghanistan where the Sunni radicals were, and the Taliban, and we destroyed them. The Taliban is no longer in power, and Al-Qaeda is greatly degraded. We saw the second threat as Iraq. Why? Are they radical, fanatical Islamicists? No. But they were a Baptist descendant of the Nazis party in the Middle East who saw an opportunity by using terrorist organizations to potentially reach and harm the West and the United States. And what the president said a couple of weeks after 9/11, he followed through with it, that we will destroy terrorist organizations and states that sponsor terrorism, and there was no question that the leading sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East was Iran. And the fact that they were reported to have weapons that they could disseminate to terrorists and that they were training terrorists made them a threat. And in the post 9/11 world, we can no longer allow to exist. And so we've taken out Saddam Hussein. The world is a better place. But now we face a third threat. A third threat that if it wasn't there, things would be a lot better in Iran. But the third threat is Iran and radical Shiites. Radical Shiites is the reason you hear about sectarian violence. Sectarian violence means violence between Sunnis and Shiites. You look at the weaponry they're getting most they get their funds? Iran. Iran is where the focal point has to be in this debate today. Because Iran is where the radical Shias are trying to protect their power. And the man that is our threat, but yet our opportunity, is a man named Ahmadinejad. I believe that we are in the equivalent of the late 1930s. And Ahmadinejad is the equivalent of Hitler. There are many who believed in the 1930s that we could negotiate with this man, that we could find reason with this man, that even though he had laid out his plans for the superiority of the Aryan race in ruling the world, that he was really just interested in his own backyard. And he wasn't going to be a threat to anybody else. We didn't take him in his word. Now we have a man in President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and the ruling mullahs of Iran, who the Europeans again are saying, we can negotiate with this man. We can deal with him. All he really wants is to control his little area of the world. Well, if all he really wanted was to control his little area of the world, that would be bad enough. Because this little area of the world happens to control most of the oil in the world. But his designs are far beyond that. If this man was simply a man who wanted to establish a global conquest, that would be a concern, obviously a much more serious one, on the pier without Hitler. But this is even a more serious threat than that. This is a man who is a religious zealot. This is a man who believes that it's his job and the job of the Shiites to bring about the return of the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, the hidden Imam. I've been giving this speech that you're hearing for about a year, all over Pennsylvania. And a year ago I said to people at a speech just like this, and how many of you have ever heard of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad? And no one raised their hand. And I said, a year from now, all of you will know his name. And all of you should know about the 12th Imam. And the fact that what the Shias believe is that this Imam will return. But only return at the time when Islam will win its final battle over the infidels. That would be us. All Shias believe that. Here's the rub. Ahmadinejad and the ruling mullahs believe it is their obligation to bring about such times. To bring about the end of times so the Imam will return and the fulfillment of the Shia prophecy will be happening. This is what he believes. Now you can say, well, he's a kook. Fine. He's a kook. How many people who want to destroy the world were not kooks? The bottom line is this man has resources, oil. I wouldn't care about him at all if he wasn't sitting on on the richest oil reserves in the world. But he has resources, and now we know he has the ability to get a nuclear weapon. The same man who helped North Korea develop their nuclear weapons, A.Q. Khan, is the man working with Iran developing their nuclear weapons. There are nuclear scientists or scientists from Iran and North Korea, and there are North Korean scientists in Iran. This is serious business. This is a man, this is a country, this is a movement that wants to change the world. And we sit by and we play political games for partisan advantage at an election. We sit by and take shots. We sit by and do nothing. This is the greatest threat America has ever faced. Now you know. Now you know. This is a burden that I don't carry around. Why? Because this Senate race, the Senate races that we have, well, they are going to, in all likelihood, determine the course of our national security policy for the next couple of years. If things don't go well across the United States, the Democrats gain major ground or take control of the Senate and the House, what do you think the attitude in Washington, D.C. will be about sustaining this war and being more aggressive and stopping the Iranians and the Islamic fascists? Let me assure you, the answer will be the same answer that America had in the late 1930s. And that is, we can negotiate